5.1 FM, The Light, and its management. And now, to address the legal concerns of our community, AM 1310 The Light presents Legally Speaking. Here is today's host.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. We have a superstar panel today. As always, we have attorney Milton from LA and that crack shot legal analyst Vanita from Indianapolis, now Chicago. But before we get started, there are so many fascinating things that have been on the news, but let's cover some of the important things that I think that we need to discuss. First, a big shout out to the Biden administration. There's something that's historic has been going on. They made some significant progress. They did the job report this week, and the economy is much better shape than most people realize. We have about 5 million folks looking for work and 11 million jobs. We had an unemployment rate at 3.6%. We have turned the corner on the coronavirus. Now we got some different strands of it. Hopefully everybody get vaccinated. But then the problem we have, though, the present issue is mass shooting in America. Mass shooting in America, back before Trump became president, we had about 239 mass shootings, and 179 the year before under Obama. When Trump became president, it went up to 345. By his fourth year in office, 614 mass shootings in America. And now we're beginning to see a pattern. We have these 18 to 21-year-old males that are becoming like domestic terrorists, and they're going out shooting folks of all walks of life. And the thing that's sad about it is that they don't discriminate. They have hatred for Blacks, hatred for school kids, hatred for people attending parades. You name the gamut. We've seen these mass shootings, and they're getting just more deadly than ever. They're using weapons of mass destruction. The carnage that they did in the most recent case in Illinois, the bullets just shattered people's flesh. It was just shocking to hear the results of this mass shooting. And so the only thing we can say about mass shooting is that when you go in open space, be careful. You know, look at escape routes, look at places to cover. And last week we had expert on, more importantly, check your surrounding. Now, having said that, then we have so many important legal issues today. I think probably we need to start with this mass shooting that happened in Attorney Banks' neck of the woods. Attorney Banks, what's going on with that killer shooter that tried to shoot everybody at the parade last week?
Well, as you know, Attorney Lee, and thank you for having me, there's not a day that goes by that we don't hear of a devastating and horrific mass shooting. In fact, on Independence Day and that week, there were 10 mass shootings. And a mass shooting is defined as any shooting incident where there are 4 or more individuals that are injured or killed. And in Highland Park, and to your point, Attorney Lee, I am beginning to think of these mass shootings, and there have been over 309 this year, one every single day. And this doesn't happen in other countries, by the way. With the murder of the former Japanese prime minister, statistics were provided that showed that in 2021, there were 10 gun shootings and only 1 death, because people in Japan and other countries don't have the access to guns that we have here in the United States. And we have also determined and provided statistics that there are more guns in the United States than there are individuals and citizens in the United States. And so on July 4th, and again, we talk about, we have to call this domestic terrorism. when Attorney Lee, you have to inform our listening audience to be careful when they go to the grocery store, when they go to a movie theater, when they go to church, when they go to a July 4th parade. And I think we have to start thinking of this from the perspective of those children and those parents and those brothers and sisters who were brutally annihilated with a weapon of mass destruction that has no place in the United States. That we have to start, when we start talking about the rights of gun owners, we have to start contrasting those rights to those children that were killed at Uvalde School. Their rights to go to school and safely return home to their parents, from my perspective, trumps, sorry to use that term, the rights of a domestic terrorist. Let me also just say that there was a striking contrast in the immediate response to this mass brutal and senseless killing. And I can tell you in Lake County that you cross the street at any intersection and you're in another town. So I know and have spent lots of time on that very same street where the parade was held on July 4th. But I want to quickly just focus on the contrast, the striking contrast in the immediate response to this shooting. There is in Lake County a major crime task force, and it was formed in 1992 in response to the mutual need for joint investigative resources and expertise from all Lake County law enforcement agencies. So you saw a commander, there were assistant commanders, supervisors, investigators, evidence technicians, and this collaborative task force was formed years ago to respond to homicides, suspicious death, officer-related shootings, and you saw how they came together on July 4th, and by the end of the day, this the shooter was apprehended. You also saw within 2 days' time, you saw the Lake County State's Attorney immediately announce charges for this shooter, 7 counts of first-degree murder. And he stated unequivocally that there would be many, many, many more charges. So that immediate response is a striking contrast, in my view, to the responses that we've seen from law enforcement across the nation. We also saw from this bold state's attorney, Lake County State's Attorney Eric Reinhardt, unequivocally state that these AR-15s and other weapons of mass destruction have no place in the hands of citizens, and they should be outright banned. And so we need more bold people to step up and say, no, this must end. And while the president signed a week or so ago the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which does a number of things that we can talk about as well today, including boosting and providing support for the red flag laws, because some red flags were missed in this case as well. We need to do more. And I'll stop there.
Attorney Grimes, what troubled me about this is that his father signed the waiver for him to get the weapon. And do you think that charging parents for these carnages should also be a remedy? I know you're a defense lawyer, a famous defense lawyer, but you got an assailant that it hell-bent on shooting everybody in the whole city. I mean, he shot 2-year-olds, 80-year-olds. He just shot everybody inside. And this is not a regular type weapon. The bullets were those federal type bullets that when they hit a target, it was just incredible as to what happened to the human flesh.
What's your question?
Well, should the parents be charged? The dad?
From what I've read, it seems as though, Vanita, I was following. I'm going to answer your question the best I can, Nate. I don't know if I can. Well, if you have evidence that the parents somehow knew that this young man was going to do what he did, of course, and they supported him, of course. But in this case, they appear to be the typical parents, protective of their child. Yeah. Police had been called out to the home from what I read on several occasions, one where he allegedly attempted suicide with a sharp edge weapon, a hatchet or a sword or something, and another where he threatened to do harm, I think, to a family member. When they came out for the attempted suicide, he said he was no longer considering that and he wasn't going to harm anyone else. They let him stay home. For the threat to a family member, the family member didn't want to press charges once they saw the police and being concerned about what would happen to him if he's arrested because he's thin in stature, don't look like he could last an hour in a jail facility. They didn't want him arrested. So they're protective of their child because they can't see the event that happened on July 4th. They only see the need to protect their child. I'm dealing with the case not just like this, I should say, that has concern of me and my co-counsel and the mother and the probation officer. And he has been dangerous before. And I fear that he could do something terrible like this, but your hands are tied. Your hands are tied. Unless he commits an overt act of violence and declared to be a danger to himself or others at the moment, they can't do anything with him.
Okay.
They can't do anything with him.
Okay, let's chime in.
The father sponsored the firearm card. He had to sign on behalf of this young man. And I say absolutely he will be charged. And his attorney, Stephen Greenberg, who also represented R. Kelly, a prominent lawyer here in the Chicagoland area, is already talking on social media and having this parent actually, I'm thinking, deliver these interviews where he is justifying, his actions in sponsoring this firearm card and stating that that all, the proper procedures, were followed. Again, despite the fact that, as Attorney Grimes stated, there were several incidents where this young man showed unhealthy behavior, including threatening to kill everybody in his family, suicide attempts. And my question is, who's monitoring these social media sites for, now in the, after the fact, we're seeing all these postings that he made. So he absolutely should be, the parents absolutely should be charged with reckless behavior. Lawyers have to become more creative and innovative about bringing these suits. They may not be accountable for, obviously, first-degree murder, but they've engaged in reckless behavior, and they should be prosecuted for involuntary manslaughter, for example, as the Crumley family in Michigan. And those are the parents of the young man in Michigan who shot several students in his school. When the parents begin to see that they're going to be held responsible, I think that is one step in the right direction. And I also think that the manufacturers of these weapons should be prosecuted as well. And we did see a $73 million settlement with Remington as a result of the Sandy Hook shooting.
Okay, before we go, we had a couple callers, and also for our listeners, our call-in number, you can participate in the discussion today, is 463-204-0419. 463-204-0419. Let's go to the line. Pierre Pullins, you have a question or comment for us today, sir?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, this is for Vanita. I heard that the father also had run for mayor, and one of his platforms was for repealing the ban that the local city up there where this took place, they had a ban on assault weapons or something, and I think one of his platforms was repealing it when he ran for mayor. I'm not so sure how true that is, but I just wanted to bring that up. That's what I heard.
Great point, Pierre. I didn't hear about the piece with respect to the ban, and I can confirm that very quickly. But I do know that he did run for mayor a few years ago.
Yeah, and one of his platforms was repealing that thing. Real quickly, for everybody, and Nate, I know you're on guns, but right now I just wanted, because I know you're a big timer in the Democratic Party. There are three things that the Democrats need to run on, and that is guns, and raising the age, January 6th, and this Roe v. Wade. Absolutely. And I think that if we hit those three key points all the way to the election, and target Republicans, not just we need to get our people out, but just target Republicans, because this country, these people are crazy, and they try to overthrow the government. And one of the things that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention, I want to address it. President Biden loved Joe Biden, but here's the thing: he's going to he's contemplating, or has promised Mitch McConnell, he's going to appoint a conservative Republican lawyer to the federal bench down there in Kentucky, as long as and Mitch McConnell won't obstruct his appointments to the federal court. I mean, that could be a campaign issue, but Joe, he needs to toughen it up, and Attorney Grimes, if y'all got to get on the vice president, and she needs to be the pit bull here. Maybe that's a role she needs to take, but Joe's got to get tougher on these Republicans, and he needs to get tougher on these stances. And there was a piece in the New York Times about that. But I want to thank y'all for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pierre. Excellent points.
Pierre made a bunch of points, and that's a lot to talk about. But back to the deadly shooting. The problem we have now is that this proliferation of these deadly shootings all started with the Trump administration. See, in 2016, there was only 179 mass shootings, which was 179 too many. And then we had this bravado of, this rude behavior and this assault on the idea that there's the Second Amendment being overtaken. So now all of a sudden everybody buying more guns. Now we almost have about 400 million guns in America out of a population of 330 million. So we have more guns in our country than people. And so what has happened? The mass shooting went up in 2017, the first year of Trump, to 345. By 2020, there were 614 mass shootings in America under Trump administration. So Trump administration has done two things that have been real significant. One, since 1929, the deficit was zero. By Trump year, it was 21 trillion. At the end, it was 28 trillion. So he accumulated 25% of the federal deficit in mass shooting. So he tripled the number of mass shootings in America under his leadership. So we had contrast that with what Pierre is saying. There's a lot of other issues that are more salient, but you have to educate voters on the different issues. Now, Milton, your comment, sir.
Pardon?
You had a question or comment.
After Pierre, I don't know what to say. You got a hell of a responsibility in this Democratic Party to do if you're going to address all of Pierre's, that list that he put out there. But I don't know. My comment is, I understand that we're all upset about what happened in Illinois and what's been happening with these mass shootings. But Vanita, I just don't know how the parents are still entitled to innocent until proven guilty. And I think that we cannot just take those protections away from people, the right to care for their kids, protect their kids, provide for their kids, unless you can show some strong evidence to support that they contributed to the carnage and the deaths that come out of their child's behavior. So supporting them and even buying them guns for what you think may be sport, I don't think it's that easier of a decision, but maybe in some cases they have enough warnings. It's a difficult job from what I see.
It will be a challenge. And you're right in terms of the evidence. And from my perspective, we have to start looking at parental accountability and culpability. And maybe this will serve as a deterrent. I'm not saying that the parents in this case, I think the parents in this case may well be criminally charged. I'm not saying they'll be convicted, but I do think that they will be charged. And that, but let me just say this. Let's see what the evidence and the investigation uncovers, right?
Yeah.
Because before that happens, as lawyers, of course, we can't fully evaluate the case against the parents. But I do think that we need a national ban on assault weapons. How could the founding fathers, affluent white men, by the way, have contemplated weapons of mass destruction to have been any part of the Second Amendment right of citizens to possess guns?
I agree with you on the banning of mass destructions. I think I've made myself clear the last time we talked about this issue with my viewing of the tape from Buffalo, New York, with the rapidness in which this woman, the first victim, fell in death. It was just horrifying. It shocked me, really. I hadn't visualized it like that until I saw it on that video out of Buffalo. So I don't see the need for AR-15s and those types of weapons anywhere, maybe even on the battlefield. I can't make the rules for the battlefield, but surely not here in civilian life. And that includes for the police department. They seem to be pretty handy with the use of weapons too. You shoot a running man with no gun 60 some times. It's just a rampant disease going on here with the use of weapons in this country. And I don't know where you start, I guess.
Well, back to Pierre, one thing that he said, I looked up the Cremo. His father ran for mayor. He owned a deli there in that Highland Park. And the issue was gun control. The current mayor, who's a Democrat, was pro-gun control, but the father was against it. So he has a history of being a Second Amendment proponent. And but one of the things that also mentioned was the assault weapons ban, which took effect in the 1990s. But that expired, and because of that, we've had an increase in shooting in America. So back in the 90s, we had George Bush was president, and we had the mass shooting in 1989. And so Congress responded and enacted an assault weapons ban. And then under the Clinton administration, then for whatever reason, it expired, and they now think it's okay. And we've seen the proliferation of the NRA, who pays millions of dollars to buy politicians, apparently. And the net result is that we have this runaway purchase of these weapons of mass destruction. And no matter what you could do, no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to control these mass shootings until you control the influx of guns of mass destruction. People say guns is not the problem, but when you look at the whole world, United States is what, about 80% of mass shootings in the whole world now. And, and I think that we have to look at the fact that we have almost 400 million guns in America with a population of about 330 million. We have more guns than people. With 3% of world population, now we up to about 53% of private gun ownership. We have more people being killed in the United States now by mass shooting than killed over in the Ukraine. Yes. We have a war going on where they're using bombs and bullets and tanks, and yet we have more killing in our country. We have to attack this problem as citizens. Now, we talked about some of the issues last week that we need to go back to. We had a different treatment in terms of the suspect. Cremo tried to shoot everybody in the city, and they arrested him. I didn't see a bruise on him. I didn't see a cut. I didn't see him being shot, and looked like he was taken into custody without incident, according to the news report. Meanwhile, a man in Akron, Ohio, African American, on a parking ticket got shot how many times? 60 or more?
90 shots, 60 times, 90 rounds, 60 times shot.
Explain that, Nate.
Tragic. What has happened is that starting in the 80s, the courts grew more conservative, and they started this judicially created issue of qualified immunity. Now, you're talking about the Supreme Court going overboard on abortion. This is one law that which they went overboard in protection of police officers. So qualified immunity basically says that when the officer has a reasonable belief that his life or somebody else's life is in danger, then he's protected, even if he make mistakes. But what has happened along the way, we've seen an abuse of this qualified immunity. And so the net result is that these officers have seen in the past, this is not the first time that happened in Ohio. You remember we had the kid got shot in the park. We saw the officer shoot inside of a car about 100 times, and those officers was acquitted. So now they have a history in Ohio of being acquitted for doing what appears to be clear misconduct. Milton.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nate, but it reminded me just then of the TV docudrama in Cleveland, I think it was, from the 2012 shooting where the couple was shot. They called the film 137 shots, where this man and woman was shot in his car 137 times. And there was a line of patrol cars following them until they stopped the car. And the one officer in the end jumped up on the hood of the car and shot through the windshield over 40 times, killing both the passenger and the driver. And they had no weapon. And the court trial is shown, and he cried and said he was in fear for his life when he jumped up on the hood of the car and shot over 40 times through the windshield. And the judge found him not guilty because he believed he was in fear for his life when he killed those people. So it seems like Akron cops are in competition with the Cleveland cops on how many shots you can get off. I know that's ridiculous, but man, it's do what you want to do.
We're referring to Jalen Walker, a 25-year-old Black man who was unarmed at the time. He was killed by police in Akron, Ohio. Again, they were responding to a traffic stop. But as Nathaniel mentioned, the striking contrast again between the mass shooter in Highland Park, who was calmly and without incident, apprehended.
So was the shooter in Buffalo apprehended he was allowed to surrender? Go ahead, I'm sorry, Brittany.
You're absolutely right, without a scratch.
Well, so if they want to ask the question, why? Why? How?
We have two Americas. One of the things too I want to comment on I've done a number of litigation on this issue for the last 35, 40 years. And one of the truisms I discovered is that at the police academy, when there's qualified immunity doctrine being developed, they start teaching the officers to say, I'm in fear of my life. So the magic word, in fear of my life, became part of the repertoire. The second thing that's more disturbing is I saw a weapon or I saw him shoot at me. And one of the cases, we had the Tyson case here in Indianapolis.
Oh, I thought I saw a weapon.
Yeah, in the Tyson case, they shot him about 50 times in the back, and they said Tyson shot at them. And then the officer who said he was shot in the foot inside of his car. and so now this evidence is concealed. So in our city, one of the big problems we have is that they tend to cover up evidence. In most of the cases, you've seen a clear departure from norm. They cover up evidence of misconduct. That is perpetrated probably in all the major cities in America. And that's why we have this dilemma we have now. Now, we'll go to this one caller real quickly. Let's see. Mr. Metcalf, you have a question or comment for us today, sir?
Hello, Brother Nate.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, Brother Motep here. How you doing? And thanks for taking my call. I'll be brief. Number one, you're correct. And what disturbs me even more about most of these situations, and I'm almost 60 years young, and that I have a tenor of, because there's an increase in violent crime around the country. I get that tenor again, even from black folks. Remember back in '94, you had 151 preachers sitting right there on the porch, on the steps, with Clinton when he signed the '94 crime bill. When actually, it was just an expansion of Reagan's '86 crime bill and '88 crime bill. So I'm getting this tenor from black folks, from not Tina per se. When you was talking, I heard you talking with Tina Cosby last week, and that was great advice you gave. But from her co-host James, for the most part, I think he has a tenor to want to go back to this wretched type of policing, which we know from I read the new Jim Crow twice, which we know that it ensnared a whole bunch of people on petty crimes, small crimes, or people who didn't do most of the things going on. I'd like for you to inform the public. Actually, most of the people down at the courthouse is not there for felonies, it's misdemeanors. My mother's been an attorney 50 years, and she says misdemeanors power the system. So that's number one. Number two is that the thought process behind the way policing is done is not talked about anymore to me from Biden and anybody else. I'm sure they saw what just happened these last few weeks, and they didn't mention it. You just had another shooting, a mass shooting in Gary. The assault weapons ban did work. I think my research showed it was only 7 mass shootings that 10-year period, but 3 of them happened in '99, the year of Columbine. 3 of them happened that year of Columbine. So assault weapons ban did work, and also they banned large magazines at that time too. You couldn't get more than a 10-round magazine at that time, so that was critical too. So this country seems to want to have people at each other's throats with the laws that they're passing. They want, to me, it appears that they want this chaos to be created. And then here's another nexus, Nate. They pass all these laws to give you open carry in all these states. Okay. Then the police shoot you for carrying a gun. How do we bridge this nexus? Because you got all these states that are open carry, no permit states, yet then the police want to throw out, well, he had a gun. Well, I was legally carrying a gun. So that's a nexus right there that definitely affects black people more than anything. But look at this tenor of attorneys, this tenor from black folks of this 94 feeling. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling this 94 feeling amongst people, and it's ugly to me because it's only going to snare a whole bunch of low level and people who've done not too much stuff in the system. And we tried it before, it didn't work, and we don't need it again. Thanks for taking my call.
Wow, that's a lot, Milton. Vanita, you can respond to him.
Yes. Just further analyzing the situation, the unfortunate shooting that we're discussing in Akron, Ohio. This resulted from this was a routine traffic stop that police are now saying turned into a public safety issue, when they said that it appeared that a shot had been fired from Mr. Walker's vehicle during the pursuit. And so they said that Mr. Walker left the gun behind and exited his car to flee on foot. And that after the police officers unsuccessfully attempted to use tasers, they feared that the suspect was preparing to shoot when they fired their weapon. So you've got 8 officers firing 90 rounds, 60 shots hit Mr. Walker as he's running away from them. Again, the question will become whether or not under the circumstances they used reasonable force. I mean, the Supreme Court has stated that if officers are justified in firing at a suspect in order to end a severe threat to public safety, they need not stop shooting until the threat has ended.
What I read is they found a gun in his car.
Right.
I'll take that. What I also read was their body cams show, I shouldn't say unequivocally, but their body cams show that he had no weapon at any time when he was out of that car and running for his life. It doesn't show him reaching for a weapon or having a weapon. So how do you justify shooting at a person that many times?
Well, here's my problem with this, and I want everybody to listen very carefully to this part. My problem is that I've investigated a number of these police shootings, and the first thing they do when they do a public release, they give a very favorable impression of what the police officers did or at the time. So what they did, they showed weapons, but they don't show the source. Were the weapons underneath his seat? Were they in the glove box? So in other words, this whole idea that somebody driving 45 miles an hour and shooting behind them is insulting, but they use that as a precursor to shooting someone. So now they say that he shot at a police officer. Then you go look at the forensic evidence, that usually does not happen. They just make it up. This start with the training academy, and this is what I'm having a problem with. I've gotten some confidential records from the training academy educational process, and this is how they're being trained. If you say they shot at you, then that justify you shooting back and killing the suspect. So this is something that I think is really bad. So this suspect could have had a whole list of reasons why he's running from the police officer. Right. I want to make this clear to Pierre and the people that send me texts on this issue. Number one, he could have had a prior encounter that was very negative. I've had the Tyson gentleman who got shot, murdered by a police officer. He was stopped 21 times. 21 times. He got stopped one time for driving too slow. So the point is that you, at some point in time, you see the elevated temper by a person just get tired of being stopped or being harassed by a police officer. And the second thing is that did the police officer know this gentleman, or did he know them? And a lot of time you have some acrimony from prior experiences between officers and the suspect. So my problem is that under no circumstances do I think they should be justified in shooting a person that many times in the back.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, it's at the time of the shooting. What was he doing? Running is a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. Running away from police officers should not lead to a death sentence. The only time that should be justified is when the suspect is shooting at the officer. They need to use deadly force to save their life or the life of someone else, which was clearly not present in that Akron situation.
Well, they could have thought that he was running somewhere to get a gun and then he would have been a danger to some schoolyard. They come up with that kind of reasoning.
Well, what's interesting, here's the way that the city should deal with these shootings. And what they should do is that immediately after the shooting, they should have a trained interrogator, like a lawyer, come in and take a detailed statement, separate the officer, and take a detailed statement at that moment in time. Before they're able to start concocting these stories of what they believe what happened, get them together and take separate statement, separate them all. And then before they see the body cam footage, then you do the body cam footage, and then you come back and take a second statement after you look at the body cam. So what I'm saying is that what generally happened is that in all my cases that I've investigated, there would be a dramatic departure of what's in the footage versus what they're saying. And so in a nutshell, I don't believe what the officers say. I believe what the video says.
All right. All right. I'll never forget, Nate, they described Rodney King as a PCP crazed monster when he was beaten by the police, and that they were scared of him. And the video shows King surrendered, laid on the ground, and one of the officers knelt down beside him, and then you see him getting up because they told him they were going to kill him. So he decided to run for his life, and they used that to beat him down for 1:16 seconds. So this has been going on for a long time, that beating of suspects and killing of suspects that does not pose a danger.
And as Pierre stated as well in the chat, as you know, many times these are poorly lit situations, just sometimes occurring at night. And again, I mentor young people, African-American students, that your goal is to get home safely. That what Mr. Jalen did in running away, and I understand the reasons why someone would run away, Nathaniel, that you described, that your goal is to get home safely and be prepared, not if you get stopped, but when you get stopped. And you know how to conduct yourself in that type of situation.
Yeah, but like Nathaniel said earlier, you don't know why he ran. You just don't know.
Yeah, see, we talked about this, so let's just kind of go over this again. The number one thing we said in terms of policing and citizen, particularly your African American, is that before you get in your car to drive, check your car for things that could get you in trouble. Check it for pain pills that don't belong to you. We've had cases where people get arrested by carrying narcotics. A oxycodone prescription left in your glove box or left in your armrest could lead to a felony in most states. So you have to make sure that you don't have those type of things in your car. The second thing, you check your tail lights and things like that. Make sure they're working. So don't give officers a reason to stop you that create what is called probable cause. So if you don't give them a reason to stop you, then it's increase the probability that each time you're out and about, you arrive home safely. And the third thing, of course, instead of calling people you get stopped, turn your video on, upload it to the cloud, record the encounter. I think that's more important than anything else. I have people that get pulled over by a police officer and then they call their brother, their mama, their friend. Dumb idea. Record it. Do not go out and start calling people on the phone. Record the encounter, save it to the cloud. And therefore, that gives you the greatest degree of protection in the sense that if you can monitor what they're doing, it gives you a recourse, it gives you a cause of action.
But Nate, you know, I think I said this the last time because I had just gotten the case in here where a young man was pulled over because of a license that had been used on the car for 2 years and was a legal license. And then he said, I got a gun in the glove compartment. And they stopped everything, brought in the helicopters and 12 cars and surrounded him and pulled shotguns on it. And the young man told me, Mr. Grimes, when they ordered me finally out of the car, one of the officers was shaking with the shotgun. I thought I was going to die right there. So the scene of these stops and the creation of danger and fear, you just cannot imagine in some of these cases. So I don't know what happened in Akron, Ohio, but I know what I see coming through my office and my experience. And a lot of this, that's why I threw the King case out, they provoked him to get up and run. So they would have an excuse to kill him, undoubtedly. They didn't know he was going to get beat down like that, but they beat him unmercifully. So I just don't know what to say. Now you have a right to have a gun. And they're going to suspect most of these young black men, especially, got guns in their car. So how did they come about them? They come up on them fully loaded and ready to blow. So, I don't know what to do sometime in a situation like that. Do I run? Do I shoot because I fear for my life? Or do I put my hands up? What do you do?
Well, the one thing that I would do, I disagree with our police expert. I will never tell a police officer I have a loaded gun in my car. I just think that you're asking to be shot.
Asking for.
Yeah, I just think, I don't agree with that approach. I'm not going to tell a police officer, hey, officer, I got a loaded gun here. I'm not going to do that. I just wouldn't do that. But the second thing, though, I would not keep a loaded gun in the same area that I have my registration.
Have your what?
Well, your registration for your car.
Well, that's
when you get pulled over. Now we'll take one quick caller. Caller, you have a question for us today. Hello, Tracy?
Yeah.
Hey, you have a call. You have a question for us.
Yeah, I got a question for mistreatment with a doctor. Like I just had a procedure. I'm a dialysis patient, right? And I had a Fischler-Graham by Dr. Cook. And what he done was I told him not to give me no fentanyl, right? And it's in my file for him not to give me fentanyl. He gave me fentanyl anyway. So of course I was high. I almost thought I was going to bite my tongue off. Then when I asked the scene, he came in the room and started poking me with his pointing finger, poked me in my chest and in my arm where I just got the procedure done, and asked me, what am I talking about? And it put me in shock, man. So I called the hospital and told them what happened. They said it'll take 30 to 90 days before they can investigate the problem.
Well, your remedy, sir, is to contact the medical licensing board and file a complaint with the medical licensing board. See, you don't necessarily have damages because you, on the fentanyl, part of the adverse, you could have had some type of reaction to it. But if you think it was mistreated, your remedy would be filed with the medical licensing board, and you could look on the internet and file a complaint against the physician. Okay.
Well, what if I don't do drugs though, and he give me drugs anyway, and I tell 5 different people not to do that, and he does it anyway?
I can't comment on that. No, I can't comment on that because what happened is that physicians are given great latitude in terms of course of treatment, and they must do it within a certain standard of care. And so I can't give you over the air an intelligent response as to whether or not that was appropriate or inappropriate, because you're saying that it's in your record, but
Can I come to the office and talk to you about it Monday?
No, not Monday, maybe Tuesday you can call, okay? And our number is 317-631-5151. Take care, man.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, that was a little bit off topic.
But a good question.
Yes. It's medical negligence in our states. We got a really bad medical malpractice laws, designed to protect physicians. So there are hard cases. Even if they breach the standard of care, it's almost impossible to prove cases under our current state law, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. But having said that, we need to conclude this issue about this police mass shooting issue. And one final comment, Uvalde, Texas, what should happen to the police officers who apparently were cowards?
They should be fired if they were cowards and the evidence demonstrate that they didn't go in there because they were afraid. Is that what the determination is?
I saw the video. The video don't lie. They had a shield. They had automatic weapon. They did nothing as kids and people died. It was just a horrific scene. Unfortunately, our state law doesn't allow you to sue a police officer for not protecting you. They can pick and choose. I'm not sure about other states, but in our state, a police officer is not legally accountable if he lets you die.
Right.
Is that the same type law in your state?
Yes. Yes, I had the case where the man was told that he wanted the killer to kill the girlfriend who was pregnant. He was in the armed service, and the police department was warned about it. They didn't do anything about it for 3 weeks. And sure enough, he ended up killing the girlfriend and stumping the fetus when he cut it from her body.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he said the police was not responsible because they never undertook a position of protecting her. They didn't do anything to protect her, but they never undertook the protection of her, so they weren't responsible for not doing anything.
Attorney Bank, Uvalde, Texas, what should happen to the police officers in your mind?
To your point, the tape doesn't lie, the video doesn't lie. I recently saw some drawings where, law enforcement was standing out in the corridor instead of, running to the to where, the classroom where the shootings were taking place. And so if the evidence supports that, and many of the citizens in Uvalde are calling for the firing of those police officers.
Well, from what I saw, they should fire each and every one of those folks inside the building, and it become a little bit murkier in terms of people outside because they're following a chain of command. The only person they arrested was the people that trying to go in there and save the kids. It was kind of bizarre, and now becoming somewhat of confusion because now they're saying, well, who is actually in command? But we know one thing that's true, that our kids aren't safe anymore in school. We've entrusted schools to keep our kids safe, and now we got other issues we have to worry now. Every time you send your kids out on the bus to go to school, you have to worry, well, would this be the day that some crazy mass shooter break into the building? It's just a sad state of affairs, but we have to do something about these weapons of mass destruction as a point of beginning.
Yeah, what are we gonna do though, Nate? There's so many of them out there now. What do we do? Give rewards for turning them in? Get them off the street?
Yeah, sad. Well, I thank each and every one of you for calling in today. I think our VIP guests, Attorney Grimes, Attorney Banks, you can always reach us at the law firm at 317-631-5151. If you're on the West Coast, Attorney Grimes, what's your phone number, sir?
323-295-3023.
And you can always call us during the week, usually Tuesday to the rest of the week, because Monday is usually a bad day. And if you want to reach Attorney Banks, they have a follow-up question. You have a number that they can reach your Attorney Banks?
224-513-5931.
Okay, folks. Thank you for listening again. And next week, we'll continue this discussion. Until then, God bless and keep you and stay safe. And if you're out and about, be careful now because we have a lot more crazed mass shooters than ever before in American history. We appear to be gaining traction with copycat murderers. And don't forget, the lives you save may be your own. Take care and may God continue to bless each and every one of you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.